Alright, what is going on, guys? I am TJ, bringing you a brand new video on my channel. And today's video is my mock draft 2.0. Now, last year, I think I had like 5 mock drafts. I haven't been as active this year, but I have been watching way more tape than I was last year. Last year, I was just like putting out a mock draft. Every time I thought of something or watched film on a prospect, I was like, oh, I like him. So I'd switch around the mock draft, or I'd put somebody higher. And I was really focused on what the media was saying, like who the media thought was going to jump in the draft or fall in the draft, rise in the draft, whatever. But this year it's been a lot more of me watching all the film that that I'm capable of watching with school and work and stuff like that, and then evaluating my opinions off of that. There are a few picks in here that are like, kind of biased, or not biased, but based on what I've seen in the media, but most of it is just my straight up opinion, not really anybody else's. So with all that being said, let's jump right into the video. Alright, starting off with picks 1 through 8. Obviously, I'm not going to throw all 32 picks on one graphic for you guys. I'm going to make it digestible, and I'm going to make it easier for you guys to read and give you more time to look at the picks and evaluate it. And, if you feel like it and you want to get a better look at this, just pause the video and, think about, where you might have these prospects, or if you think it's crazy that I have people in certain positions. But getting right into this, at number 1, Kyler Murray to the Arizona Cardinals, Nick Bosa at number 2 to the 49ers, Josh Allen at number 3 to the Jets, Quinnen Williams out of Alabama goes number 4 to the Raiders, Devin White at 5 to the Buccaneers, Rashawn Gary at 6 to the New York Giants, DK Metcalf at 7 to the Jaguars, and the last of this group is Montez Sweat going to the Lions at number 8. Now, talking just about some of these picks really quick. Kyler Murray at number 1. I probably don't think it's gonna happen, or that was really weird, but I think it's probably not gonna happen. But it's just a pick that I kind of like. Cliff Kingsbury, Coach Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech. He recruited Kyler Murray to come with him to Texas A&M before he left to go get the head coaching job at Texas Tech. And now they could possibly be reunited. Kyler Murray looks like he's all in on football and isn't really, worried about baseball too much. He hasn't reported to the A's, I don't think, yet. He hasn't participated in any of their spring training. I don't know if he's reported to their minor league team yet or anything like that. So it seems that he's more focused on football than he is on baseball at the moment, which is a good thing. And I think that I don't necessarily know if Cliff Kingsbury is going to go after Kyler Murray with his first overall pick, because I feel like there's other needs on that team, and they just drafted a quarterback last year. But if Cliff Kingsbury thinks that Kyler Murray is going to be a better fit in that system, go ahead and draft him. Another pick that I want to address is Quinnen Williams falling to number 4. A lot of people think he's a top 3 pick, that he could either be the number 1 pick to the Cardinals, who need some interior help. Corey Peters is kind of old. I think they've got like Frosty Rucker, and Robert Nkemdiche hasn't really panned out to be the first round pick that we all thought he was, or at least the Cardinals thought he was. The 49ers, I don't know if he'll necessarily go there, because they do have DeForest Buckner and Eric Armstead, and they also have Solomon Thomas that they drafted, and he's more of a 3-4 end than a 4-3 end, but I think they're in a standard 4-3 system now, so they may try to bump him inside and then maybe move on from Eric Armstead, and that's why I think they could go after Nick Bosa. And then at 3, Josh Allen to the Jets. I feel like they don't want to get another inside presence, because they already spent a pretty high pick on Leonard Williams, and I think that they think that's enough, so they're going to go get some edge help, which is why Quinnen Williams falls to 4. He may be the best prospect in this draft class, along with guys like Nick Bosa and Kyler Murray, but he falls because of, other team needs. I don't necessarily think that the Jets or the 49ers need inside help. If he goes anywhere in the first 8 picks on this graphic, I think it's probably going to either be 1, 4, or 5. There were some reports that came out today that the Buccaneers were going to move on from Gerald McCoy, but I think they have other needs. They drafted Vita Vea last year to eventually be that replacement, and them going Devin White at 5, I think is important, because, they're moving into a new system under a new head coach and a new defensive coordinator, and they lost, their second best linebacker in Quan Alexander to the 49ers. They paid him big money, and so going out and getting Devin White, even though I don't think he's the best linebacker in the draft this year, the consensus among the NFL is that a lot of people think that, you know, if you want Devin White, you can't wait till you have the 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th pick. You're going to have to go up and get him, you know, at 4, 5, 6, 7. I mean, realistically, in the top, in this area that he could go in, the most realistic places will probably be 4, 5, and then maybe 7. But I think 4 and 5 are probably his best fits, but I don't think he's going to fall out of the top 8. Now, DK Metcalf is a guy that's very interesting. You know, he had a pretty short season at Ole Miss. You know, that team was, I don't know how that they didn't score 55 points a game when they had DeMarcus Lodge, DK Metcalf, and AJ Brown on the same team, along with Dawson Knox, and they had, you know, a second, third round tackle and Greg Little and some other good offensive linemen. I don't know how they didn't score the ball every time they touched it, but that just shows the ineptitude of that coaching staff. But DK Metcalf's an interesting prospect because, like I said, he had a short season. He performed very well at the combine in terms of the vertical, the bench press, and the 40-yard dash. But when it came to his agility and his quick, you know, his cone times, people were like, oh my God, he ran a slower time than Tom Brady. And they were really worried about the fact that he couldn't run routes. But if you go and you watch the film, you know, he's not asked to do a lot because what he does, he's great at. He's good at slants because he can block the corners with his body and he can turn and just catch the ball in his chest. He's, you know, a straight line speed type of guy. He can burn you down the middle of the field. He's good on post routes. He doesn't have to be as technically sound as a guy like Andy Isabella out of UMass or Hunter Renfrow, because those guys don't have, well, Andy Isabella does, but, you know, Hunter Renfrow doesn't have the elite speed to just blow past guys. He doesn't have 4.33 speed, so he's got to rely on his technicality and his route running to get open, whereas DK Metcalf is just an athletic freak and can rely more on that rather than his quick feet and his quick hips. Even though that does matter, it does not matter as much for DK as it does for, you know, smaller wide receivers. And also, I feel like getting him at 7 really helps out Nick Foles. If they still have Blake Bortles, I think if they still had Blake Bortles and they didn't get Nick Foles in the offseason, they may be persuaded to go after Dwayne Haskins right here. But since they did get Nick Foles and they locked him up for another 4 years, getting him weapons on the outside is probably the most important thing that you can do for that offense right now. Moving on to picks 9 through 16. At number 9, we have Jawan Taylor going to the Buffalo Bills. At number 10, Dwayne Haskins to the Broncos. At 11, the Bengals take Devin Bush out of Michigan. At number 12, TJ Hawkinson goes to the Packers. Number 13, Clelin Ferrell or Clelin Ferrell, I don't know how to pronounce it. I've heard like those two pronunciations. I don't know how to pronounce it still. Goes to the Dolphins. At 14, the Falcons take Cody Ford. At 15, the Redskins take Drew Lock. And Jonah Williams goes at 16 to the Carolina Panthers. Now, I know you guys might think, oh my God, here's your Michigan and Mizzou bias coming out with Devin Bush and Drew Lock both in these places. But, you know, in my opinion, I do think that Devin Bush is the best linebacker in this class. He's the most fundamentally sound. He's very talented. He can blitz, he can cover, he can run sideline to sideline. He's physical. He can make plays inside and outside of the box. He's a do-it-all type of guy. The only knock on him, I'd say, is probably his size. He is 234 pounds, closer to 240 probably now after the combine. He probably slimmed down to get a good 40 time, but he's probably back up, maybe up to somewhere near the 240 range, but he is only 5'11". But even though, you know, Devin White is still a mammoth of a human being, he's a very raw prospect, and if teams realize that, Devin Bush could go higher than Devin White, and he could be an easy faller, and Devin Bush could be an easy riser in this class. Also, Dwayne Haskins at number 10. A lot of people think he could go to the Giants. A lot of people think he, you know, could end up a lot of other places, but everybody's favorite position for him is the Giants right now, and I talked about it in my free agency video. In my reaction to the free agency video, my winners and losers. If you haven't checked that out, you know, already, go check it out. You know, I'll make it one of the videos at the end that you can click on, and it'll take you to it. So, you know, I'll do that favor for you guys. But just talking about Dwayne Haskins a little bit, you know, there's concerns that I have with him just in terms of his play, and there's concerns that I have with the Giants that the moves that they make didn't necessarily make me want to believe that they want a rookie quarterback, or at least that they want one, you know, at the 6th pick. I feel like that they think that there's a lot better guys that you can take at pick 6, and it's one of those things that my dad preaches this to me, and I've started to believe it now rather than earlier in my life watching the NBA and the NFL draft. Take the best available player that you can rather than the biggest need that your team has. You know, if that's the case, then Kyler Murray probably won't go number 1. Their biggest needs, the Cardinals have needs like literally everywhere, but you know, they may end up drafting a guy like Nick Bosa or Quinnen Williams or Josh Allen, maybe even number 1, and I don't know if the Giants' biggest need is to to sit a rookie quarterback for a year. I think they have other needs, especially on the defensive side of the ball, that they need to address, which is why I had them taking Rashawn Gary at 6, and Dwayne Haskins ends up falling. Now, John Elway is in love with Drew Lock, and so is John Gruden. So I wouldn't be surprised if, maybe Drew Lock falls to the 24th pick and the Raiders pick him up there. But John Gruden and John Elway, two Johns who were both, not as good as people make them out to be, are both really in love with Drew Lock. John Gruden coached him at the Senior Bowl and was adamant about him. He loved him. He loved how he played, how he conducted the offense, how he can make plays outside the pocket and all that good stuff. And all season at Mizzou games and, in the press box, John Elway was there watching Drew Lock play. So the thing is, if Dwayne Haskins falls, I don't think that John Elway will pass up on Dwayne Haskins. I think he'll take the best available quarterback. Even they do need a quarterback for the future, but I don't think he'll take Drew Lock over Dwayne Haskins. TJ Hawkinson is a guy going at number 12 to the Packers that I didn't really know a lot about. I thought that, this class early in the forming stages of, watching film and stuff like that, to me, it looked like Albert Oguibanam from Mizzou, Noah Fant, maybe Zach Gentry out of Michigan, CJ Conrad. Those were the guys, to me, that were the best tight ends in this class. But TJ Hawkinson, after watching his film, really emerged to me as a guy that could do it all. He can block, he's very physical, he can make plays down the field, he's good with the ball in his hands after the catch. He's just an all-around do it tight end, and the Packers don't really have a tight end that they can rely on. I think they had Mercedes Lewis last year and Jimmy Graham, but Jimmy Graham's not going to be there. Mercedes Lewis isn't going to be there, so go out and get a young weapon that Aaron Rodgers can rely on. Aaron Rodgers is at his best when he's got a guy like Jermichael Finley or Jared Cook to throw to, who made big plays for him down the field, and TJ Hawkinson can be that guy for the Packers at 12. A guy that's fallen a lot in a lot of drafts is Cleveland Farrell out of Clemson. To me, he's probably a top 5 pass rusher in this class. It's arguable between him and Brian Burns at the 5 spot, but I just didn't think that none of his game really stood out to me that much, and so that's why I have him falling here. So the Dolphins, a team that need edge help, they've got guys like Charles Harris, who was injured last year. Cam Wake is really old. William Harris, I think, is that his name? I can't remember the other guy's name, but I think he used to play for the Panthers at one point. But they've got 2 really old edge guys. They've got a young edge guy on one side, so why not pair him up with another young edge guy in Cleveland Farrell? 2 dudes who are both, Charles Harris and Cleveland Farrell, both pretty physical, but Cleveland Farrell has just insane size, length, and athleticism, and he'll be good on the other side of Charles Harris. Drew Lock falling to the, or not really falling, but this is probably the sweet spot for him, is 9 to 16. He could fall to 20s, but I think that, there are teams with quarterback needs, and they will end up scooping him up. The Redskins do. Jay Gruden has been talking, which is John Gruden's son, also the head coach of the Washington Redskins. They need a quarterback. Alex Smith may not ever play a snap in the NFL again, and their quarterbacks at the moment are Colt McCoy and Josh Johnson. I think it's not John Johnson, it's Josh Johnson. So they need a guy that they can groom. Maybe they suck in either. Well, Jay Gruden thinks that Drew Lock can be a starting quarterback day 1 in the league, so if he falls to them, scoop him up and start him in day 1. Maybe in the later rounds you can get some wide receivers. You do have guys like Paul Richardson and Jordan Reed, who Jordan Reed's injury prone, but they did lose Jamison Crowder. But their biggest need is definitely quarterback, in my opinion, considering the state of Alex Smith. And Jonah Williams to the Panthers at 16. He's a guy, when you see OL right there, like with Cody Ford and Jonah Williams, that means they can play 2 or more positions. Like Cody Ford could be a guy that could play left tackle or right tackle or either of the guard positions, just probably not center. And Jonah Williams the same way. He's a pretty athletic tackle, and that makes, people think that you can slide him into guard. They do have Taylor Moton and they do have Darrell Williams, but I don't think that Taylor Moton is a guy that they would want to slide inside. So I think that they could possibly slide Jonah Williams inside to one of the guard spots and help beef up that offensive line for Christian McCaffrey, because he's not almost exclusively a pass catching back, but that's where he gets a lot of his, touches and playmaking ability from. But if you can oh my god, I just stumbled over all my words. But if you can beef up that offensive line, then you'll give him a chance to be able to run in between the tackles a little bit more effectively than what he's been doing over the past couple years. Moving on to picks 17 through 24. At 17, the Giants go Daniel Jones, quarterback out of Duke. At 18, the Vikings go Ed Oliver. At 19, Noah Fant goes to the Tennessee Titans. Greedy Williams goes at number 20 to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Seahawks take Nasir Adderley at number 21. At number 22, the Baltimore Ravens take A.J. Brown. Byron Murphy goes 23 to the Houston Texans. And Rock Ya-Sin goes number 24 to the Raiders. Now, this is a quite unusual section of the mock draft, at least these 8 picks right here. Number 17, kind of an odd one, but I think it might happen. Daniel Jones and the New York Giants do have some relation. I think it's something like a quarterback coach or like a former offensive coordinator or something like that is now a part of the Giants, or he once was a part of the Giants and was a part of the Duke Blue Devils football team while Daniel Jones was there, but there's some ties there. And, you know, they have 2 picks in this draft. You know, they gave up Odell Beckham Jr. stupidly, as I said in my free agency video. Like I said, that'll be at the end of the video on one of the boxes you can click to go watch the video. We're going to keep moving on now. And, you know, if with their first pick, I don't think they want to take a quarterback because they have 2 picks. And, you know, Drew Lock could potentially fall here. Kyler Murray could potentially fall here. But in my mock draft, both of those guys are taken. And the next best available quarterback, not in my opinion, but I think in the opinion of the New York Giants, is going to be Daniel Jones. They kind of gave up on Davis Webb, you know, when Ben McAdoo decided to sit Eli Manning and try out Geno Smith instead of trying out Davis Webb, because I guess he thought that Geno Smith was going to be the next face of the Giants. That just didn't work out. I like Davis Webb, but obviously the Giants didn't want to give him a chance, so they go Daniel Jones at 17 here. Ed Oliver, probably the biggest faller in terms of the entire draft. Now, I understand that he had a good combine, but there's not a ton of interior defensive line needs in the picks in front of him. You think about a team like the Redskins, they've got Daron Payne, Matt Ioannidis, and Jonathan Allen. That's a very good interior front for the defense. The Jaguars at 7, they have, you know, Taven Bryan, who they drafted last year, and they still have, I think, Marcel Darius. I don't remember correctly, but I do believe they still have Marcel Darius because they traded Malik Jackson to the Philadelphia Eagles, but don't quote me on them still having Marcel Darius. I do not remember that correctly. You know, a team like the Lions, they've got Damon Harrison, A'Shawn Robinson, and Deshaun Hand. So there's not a ton of gaps in the interior defensive line area of this draft, but the Vikings are one of those teams. They lost Sheldon Richardson at the end of this year to the Cleveland Browns in free agency. Sharif Floyd retired last year, and he was a pretty good player out of Florida for them. So they have Linval Joseph and then fill in the blank. So I think they go Ed Oliver here. He's a guy who can really fit with Mike Zimmer's odd, exotic, you know, defensive schemes. He can play a 3-4 end. He can play a 4-3 defensive tackle. He can rush off the edge if you want him to. He's that fast, athletic, and strong. So that's a good fit for the Giants there at 18. You know, TJ Hawkinson went at number 12 in the draft, and his teammate and tight end partner, Noah Fant, goes at 19. Delaney Walker's getting old. I feel like they need to get younger at that tight end position and get Marcus Mariota, you know, a big-time playmaker. They don't really have a big-time playmaker on that offense, and I feel like Noah Fant can be that for them. The Steelers go Greedy Williams. He's a guy that I think has a potential to go earlier. There are some cornerback needs when you think of teams like the Lions, but I don't know if they will, you know, at number 8 take Greedy Williams, but they are open to trading down, as a couple reports that I saw today. They are open to trading down, so maybe they can get to where, like, maybe the Redskins want to trade up with them or something like that, and then they take Greedy Williams at 15 instead of 8. But in this mock draft, this doesn't have any trades in it. I'm not predicting any trades right now, but he falls to number 20, and that's a good pickup for the Steelers in my opinion. Nasir Adderley, possibly Earl Thomas 2.0, a long, rangy, playmaking safety out of Delaware, goes to the Seattle Seahawks at number 21. I think he's a good fit for that defense. He replaces their need in Earl Thomas. They already have a pretty big hitting safety in Bradley McDougald, a guy who can play in the box and play down. They let Nasir Adderley roam the middle of that field in that 1 high or 2 high, and he'll make plays for you, and he'll be your franchise defensive player. AJ Brown at 22, a guy who could go earlier, but also could fall. He may have the potential to fall out of the first round just because he doesn't have that sexy speed like DK Metcalf does, but he is a very, very good route runner, probably the best hands in this draft, and he's smart and he's physical. So he's got all the traits except for just the straight line speed. He can work out of the slot. He can beat guys deep. He's an elite route runner. He can get open on himself, and you won't have to worry about, you know, Lamar Jackson trying to throw him open. He'll make it easy on Lamar Jackson to make those throws. Byron Murphy goes number 23 to the Houston Texans. They let a bunch of D-backs walk in free agency, didn't sign guys back, you know, cut guys, release guys. So that to me is their biggest need, and they go Byron Murphy here. Probably the most technically and fundamentally sound corner in the draft, even though he doesn't have, you know, the huge playmaking ability that Greedy Williams does. He is a guy that's going to be locked down for that team, and he'll play very well alongside Jonathan Joseph. In the last pick of this section, number 24, Rock Ya-Sin, cornerback out of Temple. He's a guy that I really like. He, to me, may be the third or fourth best corner in this draft. To me, he's better than DeAndre Baker just because he's a little bit more physical, he's taller, and he's longer. And that makes for a good cornerback, you know? They've got... I feel like the Raiders need to bolster up their defense before they worry about the offense. They got Antonio Brown. They did lose Jared Cook, but there's enough time in this draft and in the rest of the offseason to address that need. They need to go out and they need to help their defense. They signed LaMarcus Joyner. They signed Nevin Lawson. He's more of like a nickel guy. Rock Ya-Sin can be your number 2 corner, your number 1 corner, opposite side of Gary and Conley, really helping potentially shut down, I wouldn't say shut down, the rest of that AFC West when you're going up against guys like, you know, in the future, Dwayne Haskins, Patty Mahomes, Phillip Rivers, and those elite offenses with those elite wide receivers. It's going to be a struggle, and so I feel like they need to go out and address that corner position. All right, moving on to the last 7 picks in Mock Draft 2.0. Obviously, not the last 7 picks of the NFL draft, just the first round. At number 25, the Eagles go Andre Dillard out of Washington State. Jonathan Abram goes number 26 to the Colts. Irv Smith goes number 27 to the Oakland Raiders. I think they're playing in Oakland. They might be, yeah, I think they're still out of Oakland, but they're like playing in the Coliseum. It's a whole ordeal I don't want to get into right now. Dexter Lawrence goes number 28 to the Chargers. The Chiefs take Darnell Savage Jr. out of Maryland. Paris Campbell goes number 30 to the Packers. Garrett Bradbury number 31 to the Super Bowl runner-up Los Angeles Rams. And Christian Wilkins is the last pick in this mock draft, at least the first round, going to the Super Bowl champion New England Patriots. Now, just talking about some of these picks. At pick number 25, Andre Dillard to the Philadelphia Eagles. I had Josh Jacobs out of Alabama here for a while. The running back, obviously. They had a running back issue last year. You know, they couldn't get their guys healthy. Jay Ajayi wasn't really playing that well. It was more of a running back by committee thing. And so I thought, you know, that's probably the biggest need on their offense is a running back. Then they traded for Jordan Howard. So now I think their biggest need is probably corner. But they had some dudes play really well last year who necessarily hadn't played that much in the NFL. They could go safety, but I feel like that Jason Peters is getting older. Big V, or I think it's like Hal Vaitai or something like that. He didn't necessarily play all that well when he was in there, so I feel like drafting Jason Peters' replacement should probably be the number 1 thing on their board. Jonathan Abram at number 26 to the Colts. I like this a lot because they have Malik Hooker on the back end who's a playmaking, roaming free safety, and Jonathan Abrams, a guy you can stick in the box, stick in the nickel, play him in the 2 high, and he's just going to make plays all over the field. He's one of my favorite players in the draft because he plays with a super high motor. He's fast, he's aggressive, he's physical, he's everything you want out of a safety. He could be the next Bob Sanders for that team. Dexter Lawrence to the Los Angeles Chargers at pick number 28. There's a lot of people in NFL front offices, position coaches, GMs, all that type of stuff, who are really big on Dexter Lawrence, and he may even go higher than number 28. I have him here because, you know, I said there is a ton of interior defensive line talent in this draft, but not necessarily a ton of interior defensive line needs, especially after the free agency period. But the Chargers are still one of those teams that need help on the interior of their defensive line, even after free agency. You know, Brandon Mebane, I think he's still on their team, but if he's not, then I'm sorry about that. I just can't remember off the top of my head. He's getting older if he is still on the team, and if he's not, then they need to draft his replacement. They've got to address that need, and that really would help their run defense. They weren't a great run defense team last year, mainly because a lot of their linebackers were hurt, and that didn't help either. But if getting Dexter Lawrence is a strong interior presence on that D-line, my Kansas City Chiefs go Darnell Savage at number 29. It's interesting because we drafted Armani Watts in the 4th round last year. Obviously, we let Eric Berry go. We traded Eric Murray for Emmanuel Ogbah, and now we kind of have a little bit of a gap at our other safety position because we did sign Tyrann Mathieu in free agency. I really like Darnell Savage. He's one of my top 10 favorite players in this draft class. I just really loved watching his tape at Maryland. He was a very, very good player. He could move around to any position. He could play in the 1 high, the 2 high, the slot. He could play in the box. He can pretty much do it all. He's good against the run. One of my things with him is his angles are pretty bad, so playing him in the box would more suit his weaknesses. or they would help less expose his weaknesses than if we like strictly played him at the 1 or 2 high safety position. But he's still capable of playing those. He's very good in coverage, and I like that for the Chiefs at number 29. If they decide, you know, they want to move on from Armani Watts, or they just think that this class is better in safety and has better talent than what he brings to the table. The Packers are going heavy on the offense in my mock draft, taking Paris Campbell here with the 30th overall pick. They need a guy who can run solid routes over the middle, who can get open, and who can make plays with the ball in his hands after the catch. They don't really have anybody like that who just turns into a running back when the ball's in their hands. They've got deep threats, big bodies down the field that you can throw contested balls to, but they don't really have a guy that can navigate over the middle of that field. Devontae Adams does a good job of it, but if you get another guy to complement him, to take the eyes off of him, and that can, you know, occupy the middle of the field, and then TJ Hawkinson can also occupy the middle of the field as their tight end, that is a good combo for Aaron Rodgers. Or not really combo, but that's a good wide receiver and tight end core for him to work with. Getting older, you know, tight ends start becoming your best friend, as we've seen with Tom Brady, how he operated with Rob Gronkowski over the last 5-6 years. Garrett Bradbury at number 31 to the Los Angeles Rams. They lost some interior offensive linemen in free agency. He, in my opinion, is probably, next to Cody Ford, the best interior offensive lineman in this draft. He was really good at the combine, and after watching some of his tape, he really impressed me. He seems to be versatile. If you're an offensive lineman, if you're a tackle, you're probably going to play left or right tackle, unless you're undersized, and a guy like Jonah Williams, he's not really undersized, but, you know, tackles are getting bigger and bigger, and they're starting, you know, getting 6'6", 6'7", 6'8". You pretty much, those guys just stick to tackle positions, but, you know, Garrett Bradbury is a guy who can play all along the interior of that offensive line, and the Rams really need that, especially if they want to keep relying on Todd Gurley as much as they have over the last couple years. And to round out the first round of Mock Draft 2.0, the New England Patriots take Christian Wilkins, a defensive tackle out of Clemson. He's a guy who can move all around that defensive line. I wouldn't put him as an edge rusher, but he is, you know, athletic enough and quick enough to make that happen, especially with the way that the Patriots like to, you know, move players all around the field. Like Dante Hightower can play middle linebacker for them, or he can rush off the edge. Trey Flowers, when he was on that team, you know, he lined up as a 3-tech or a 2-tech, but he could also line up outside the tackle and rush off the edge, as well as provide pressure up the middle. They do have two okay and decently solid guys on the interior of that defensive line. They've got Danny Shelton and Malcolm Brown, who I believe are both coming up on contract years. Either this year was their contract year or next year will be. And the Patriots, they're a team who can just move on from whoever they want to, reload, and be just as good as they were last year. So adding Christian Wilkins to this team just creates more cap space, even though they don't use a ton of their cap space, but it would create more cap space if they wanted over the next couple years, if, you know, they plan on signing a big free agent quarterback, or if they plan on going after, you know, somebody big on the defensive side of the ball that to address a position of need or something like that. Christian Wilkins is a good guy who can move around all that defensive line. He creates cap space. He gets the team younger. It's an all-around good pick for the New England Patriots. So that is Mock Draft 2.0, guys. Please let me know what you thought down in the comment section below. If you think I'm an absolute idiot for one of my, you know, predicted picks, let me know down in the comment section below. And please give me a valid reason why you think I'm an idiot. I don't want to be an idiot just because you think I'm an idiot. I want to be an idiot, and I want you to tell me why I'm an idiot. I think it's fun to know why people think I'm stupid. So let me know down in the comments section why I'm stupid, or if you don't think I'm stupid and you agree with me and you say, yes, I'd love that player for my team, let me know down in the comment section below. And as always, if you guys did enjoy the video, please leave a like and subscribe. It really does help the channel grow. And that's going to do it for me, guys. I am TJ, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace.